name is Abraham L. Funches Jr. I'm the Executive Director of Waterloo Commission on Human Rights, but I'm also the pastor at Jubilee UMC Freedom Center. We are obviously trying to fix something of the MLK Freedom Bus Tour. This is the third year. We missed last year because of COVID, but each time we go down to Memphis, Montgomery, Selma, and Birmingham, we learn something different. We have the privilege of actually listening to Elaine Turner, a bona fide historian that's taking us on a tour, her heritage tours, and now we're at the church, Claiborne, where Dr. King led the sanitation march back in the 60s, and it's just so awe-inspiring. It's breathtaking to take a look at the I Am a Man Plaza and remember the legacy of those men and women that died trying to make life better for all of us.
They decided they were climbing back of one of those trucks to get out of the rain, but there was a malfunction in the electrical system in that truck, and the grinder began operating and crushed those men to death. The other men had simply had enough, so they went on strike. They began meeting right here at Claiborne Temple Living Church instead of going to work, and they marched every day, carrying signs that read, I am a man.
Originally, I wanted to bring my two oldest grandsons, who are biracial men, and I felt they needed to know their history.
Even though I learned so much in classes and my own research, nothing compared to what I've learned here, being here in the historical places.
I don't know, it just makes me ashamed to be a white person, and it just makes me really sad to think about how we treat each other and the things that we've done to each other in the past and still in the present.
Well, I heard about the trip from Hawkeye because I'm a Hawkeye student and I'm really passionate about civil rights. I'm going to school for social work, so as a future social worker, I think it's incredibly important for me to become culturally competent and make sure that I educate myself so that I can serve people in the future.
Grew up in white Iowa, small towns. I live out in the country yet. I'm surrounded always by white people. I work, and everything, and I knew that I did not understand civil rights.
One thing to hear about the civil rights, but it's another thing to experience it and be moved by it and feel the energy of it.
I'm a social sciences education student at UNI, and I just think coming on a bus tour like this is important for me as a lifelong student of history, but also important for my future students, because if I go to these locations personally, then I can relate that and tell my students about that when I eventually teach them about civil rights and slavery. It's for me, history, learning about history is a cycle. I learn about it so I can teach other people about it, and that's why I came on the bus tour.
For me, I think one of the things is just seeing how all the threads connect our present day history to the struggle in the 60s, to the struggle that preceded that, and it really leads all the way back to the African continent and the ways that African people and their descendants were treated by my people group.
I've known the history. Today, it went into my heart. And as a preacher, I've always said it's better to preach with stories. And today, we heard story after story, or read story after story, and that's what helped get it into my heart.
Please move to the back of the bus. I need that seat now. Please move back. If you can sit there in other buses, suppose you get off and into one of them. If you don't move out of that seat, I'll have you arrested. Get up from there.
The museums and the displays, the presentations, the tours, the statues are impossible to choose among, but that there's one kind of experience that's probably the biggest impact, and that's the opportunity to actually be physically in places that I would not have normally been, like walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge or being invited at the Legacy Museum to step onto a piece of property where actual human beings were being bought and sold at auction, to wind through the National Museum of Civil Rights and suddenly find yourself just separated by a window pane and a few feet from the actual place where Dr. King was knocked onto by the bullet that killed him. Those are incredibly visceral experiences, and that's more than gaining new information and new ideas and learning a broader range of information about the civil rights movement. That's a very visceral experience, and one I hope has changed me.